I know it's January the 20th, 2022, but this is our first Let's Talk session of the year. And thank you for joining us today. So, today we decided that we're going to kick it off with me and Gigi, and we're going to talk a little about support groups and what we have going on. So, hey, Gigi, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. Just
You're
enjoying this
good.
weather.
The cold weather. So, it's cold. I don't know. I know where you're looking at us from, but it's cold in Little Rock. Freezing, and we're just excited about the year. Um, it's been a challenging last 2 years because of the pandemic and COVID, and we know the numbers are up now, but we are kind of getting used to it being around. I guess that's a good word. So this year we are moving forward in providing program and services, and we get a number of people that want to move on with workshops and hopes, and we are going to do that with consideration to COVID and the guidelines of the time. So whenever it happens, whatever the guidelines are, we will follow them, but we are going to do our best. And our goal is to provide those workshops, lunch and learns, and the services that caregivers need. So I'm excited about that. What about you, Gigi?
I'm definitely excited to see my caregivers again. Always.
Yes, I miss you all. So that means look for the Little Rock Walk, look for the Little Rock Hope. If you are wanting to have some type of programs in your community, contact us and let's see how we can make that happen together because we can't do anything without community partnerships. So contact us. But today we're going to talk a little bit about what? Support.
Caregiver support groups.
So, um, I never have attended or participated in a support group outside of being like a facilitator. So I'm going to start off with that. But I do have facilitation experience. But Gigi over here, she has.
Experience. I participated in one support group. And unfortunately, I didn't have a very good experience, but it wasn't the support group fault. It was on me and how I felt about it.
So we'll talk about your experience a little bit more. So basically, a support group is a group of people who share an identified issue, I guess, trouble, and they come together to support one another because each other because they all have a perspective or experience to not only share but provide support groups. So I always explain to people they usually call me about support group. For the most part, people when they call, they say, "I'm looking for a support group, and I need such and such," and that's great. But it's twofold as well because you become a resource to other people. So in my facilitation, that's why it's called a support group. That you're supporting one another. You are with that experience. So in our case, caregiver support groups and dementia and Alzheimer's support groups, you have a unique experience, which is not as unique as you think it is, because somebody is going through the same issue, and maybe you have a way to help resolve the problem or a new idea to help resolve or handle the issue. So, would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's
So,
always so great to hear how other people do handle it and go through it too, as well.
yeah, and it's also a place to like let it off your chest because people understand how you feel. And a lot of times when you talk to even family members and other people that's not in your situation, they can't understand how you're feeling. And I think a caregiver, Alzheimer's, is a good example because a lot of times it comes with guilt and grief. And you want to say some things like you might just want to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And when you say that to a caregiver, they understand how you feel. That does not mean you're going to quit doing it. It just means at this moment or for this time period, I really don't like doing it. And they can relate to you when you tell someone else that outside of a caregiver, they usually feel like you're about to quit, like, oh, they're going to walk out. So let's talk about some benefits. Some other benefits is it help you do, so you learn better coping strategies, correct? What else,
Yeah.
Gigi? Let's talk about some of the stuff.
Some of the benefits of, well, you do learn different coping mechanisms, but you also learn that you're not alone, I think. And that's one of the things that are really important, because especially when it comes to dementia, and most caregiving experiences, it's usually one person's job. And so you feel really isolated, not even from the people around you, but your friends and everyone else. You don't think that people really understand you. So when you go into a support group, you really do find like a whole nother set of family who understand what you're going through. And so you could be really raw with it and trust that, they won't judge you about it. So I think that's something that people don't understand. It becomes a community.
Absolutely. Like a different family or
yes.
so friends, like
Yes.
so from the support groups that I have facilitated, they become like their friends, a second family. So it really does become like a support group. The other thing I think that's really great about a lot of support groups is like you focus on self-care.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Self-care is so important when you are taking care of someone else. I know people hear that like over and over again, and a lot of caregivers usually say, that's easier than say it. You can say it easily, Carolyn, but it's not the easiest thing to do. So a lot of times we can help a person individualize and come up with ideas on how to get self-care. Because when I used to think about self-care, I used to think about, oh, I need to go on a vacation, or I need to like do this like extreme big thing to like get self-care. But I learned how to self-care in small moments. Like on my drive home, when I put my favorite song, and although I can't sing, like I sing it like really loud, and like that's like a self-care moment for me. This is like my favorite song, and it's usually like something uplifting, and it helps me to breathe and get some of the stress off. So like 5 minutes, sometimes it's even shorter than that, but it's those increments of self-care that's so important. 5 minutes, that drive home, just any little thing like that. 10 minutes, you like, I'm not going to answer my phone.
And I think even saying no to things, even when people ask things about for you, or if you could do something or help them, even saying no to things and yes, more to yourself is self-care as well. Like realizing
about no, we learned about no.
Yes.
Yeah, you talked about no. So tell me about no.
So just saying no, just being able to, because usually when you're a caregiver, you care about everyone. So it's part of who you are and it's your nature. So you are always used to saying yes. And so by saying yes, you're kind of putting yourself in the back, even though you need to do things. You're like, no, my stuff is okay. I'll go ahead and help you out. But when you're a caregiver, you can't really do it because you're already helping everyone out. And so just saying no to something, or saying, no, I'm not going to do that. How about you do that? Just kind of giving out delegating responsibilities to other people if they're there.
Because we learned no is a sentence, didn't we? No.
Yes, it is a sentence. Yes. No.
You don't have to say no.
Just like no. Absolutely. And just walk away.
Or hang up. I'll call it.
Hang up. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you can learn self-care. And, Alzheimer's Arkansas, that's like, caregivers need to take care of themselves. Self-care is so important. So every support group is not the same. So in saying that, Gigi talked about her experience. I love to hear her talk about it, but her experience is support group. So here we go, Gigi.
All right,
tell us about your experience in support groups.
My experience was I became a mother's caregiver when I was about 28, and I had 5 kids who were kind of like under 8 or 9 years old. And my mother had early onset. So she was finally diagnosed around 57, 58. So I went to a support group not knowing what it was, not knowing anything. Just people were like, oh, you need this. There are people who can understand what you're going through, things of that nature. I was like, oh, great. That's fine. I'm ready for it. I went to the support group and I left just angry, upset, sad, depressed, all of these things, because when I got there, and I told them where I was and kind of what I was doing, I didn't realize that everyone's at different stages. And that I did realize that my situation was very unique, whereas I didn't think it was. And so I thought that I'd be a peer and be talking back and forth. So my expectations were too high at first. That was one of the main problems. And then the second thing was that no one did understand. They didn't understand because I was young. They were all in their 60s, 70s. It was their mother who was 95 years old. It was they took care of their aunt or their sibling who was like 40 years old, 50, who are all older. And so for me, when I left and when I told my story, I felt the way they looked at me was like they felt sorry for me. And at that point, I felt sorry for myself. It made me even more sad. It made me even more depressed. I was just like, I am really alone at this. As a caregiver, you already feel alone. And so you're excited to meet people who are your peers and who understand where you're at and where you're going through. But a lot of them, it was, oh, I'm so sorry. You're so young. She's so young. How do you do it? And I'm like, no, I don't want this. Tell me how I'm supposed to do this.
Okay, so
in my head, I said this.
Yeah, so looking back, and we talked about this, me and you've talked about it a lot. So I get calls and people, the number one thing is like, they like, I already feel sad, so I don't want to leave there feeling sad. So that is a misperception. I'm going to say, so it does happen. You are a good example that it does happen. So I'm not telling you it will not happen, but Gigi is an example that it can happen. Another thing is that you were like, oh, I think I'm the only one and nobody, I'm unique. And the reality is, as unique as we are, we learn we're not really that unique, right? Because even like since you started working here, you're like, oh, there's other people whose loved one has early onset. And so you learn. However, I say this about support group. One support group is not representative of all support groups. Yes. And you've been to some since then, right?
Yes.
So you have to, like any other thing you do, you have to find the one that fits you. Yeah. Am I correct about that?
Oh, definitely.
So I always like, because we're in the South, I'll say it's like church. Like I'll use Baptist because that's kind of what I grew up. There's like a gazillion million Baptist churches around, but not all Baptist churches, even though they believe in the same thing, but they are not all the same. You get a different experience. So support groups are the same way. Finding a support group that fits like your personality, your needs is very important. Is that correct?
Oh, it definitely is. And it's okay to say no in that situation and kind of like, okay, this was great, because a facilitator will come to you and ask you how you're doing afterwards and kind of like trying to see where you're at, because any good facilitator will see that you're uncomfortable. They can gauge those certain things. And so it's that moment when you could also ask for, is there anywhere else I could go? When you have those opportunities where you meet groups like us or even association or anywhere, just ask that question. Do you know any caregiver support groups that that may be good for me, who are around me locally, and just try it, whether at church, at a community center, anything. Just try whatever you can, because you never know. But also you never know who you're going to meet who's in the same situation.
So one part of support groups now is like all of them are not face to face. So you can go. You can do Zoom. We have a couple of Zoom support groups ourselves. Facebook have support groups, like they're virtual. So another great thing is there's a lot of ways to join support groups now. So they used to be like face to face. We have a support group page, and if you have a question or a concern, the people that are a part of that page will help answer your question or give you some feedback. We're on there as well, and we can provide information. So you don't really even have to go to a support group, a traditional one. You can reach out through social media, Zoom, and attend support groups because a lot of times people don't have. I mean, it's hard to make it to a support group. It's
It
very
is.
difficult.
And especially after my experience, that's what I ended up doing. I ended up joining a younger onset Alzheimer's support group on Facebook, and it changed everything. I have to say that was the best thing I ever did regarding like myself and kind of where I was at that point. Because you definitely you find that commonality, and you get husbands, you get daughters, you get son, you get all area as far as just ethnicity, everything. So you could see where everyone is, and at the end of the day, everyone's at the same place. They're
Yeah.
in that group for a reason.
So you didn't give up, and although you didn't go to a face-to-face, you found a good Facebook support group that met your needs. So that, I think that's at the end of the day, that is an important factor of finding the support group that works for you. There are some things, of course, like I'm going to say with social media, it's kind of hard, but it's especially face to face. Like, make sure there's confidentiality on if you go to a face-to-face support group, if that's important for you. Like, no one should be talking about how your problems, everyone else's problems, like outside of the support group. And I always say, if you live in a small town, especially, and Little Rock is not as people think it's large, but it's not large. But if you talk about a certain thing, even without names and identifying information, sometimes people can figure out who it is, especially in smaller towns. And I've seen it happen. If you was like, even if you don't use a name, and you're like, well, somebody did such and such and this, and like, a lot of times people already know who you're talking about, or they have like, oh, they can figure it out. So it's very important. I'm going to drink some water. Very important. This cough. To make sure that you don't talk about issues outside of the support group. So think about confidentiality. Think about if the group is too large, because it's a such thing as too small, but it's also a such thing as too large, especially if you are sharing. And also just be aware that you do not have to talk. Sometimes people go into support groups and they're like, oh, I gotta talk. You will talk when you feel comfortable. What do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. I didn't talk. I just waited kind of my turn. And even then I gave like maybe a few, the usual spiel. I think most caregivers, especially who've been in it a while, they have their usual like paragraph that they'll say, this is who I am, what I am. That's it. And so that's what I did. I said my usual paragraph that I say to everybody whenever they ask me what I do or about my mother. I say that, and then that pretty much satisfies everyone. So I think that we all have something like that. That's kind of a safe thing.
Girl, like, I'm coughing. This is my time. So we have a list of support groups. Where can you find them, Gigi?
You can find them on our website at aozark.org. And then you could also email us and we could send you one, just or anything else like that. And you could probably find us on our Facebook page as well.
Gigi got lost and I'm coughing. This is a wonderful life. Oh my God. Hold on. So it really is like the end of our talk about support groups. However, we do want to talk about our organization. Of course, you can find support groups at alzark.org. You can come here every third Thursday and find me, and we'll provide educational resources. And we have a great thing coming up in Conway, Caregiver Night Out on February the 19th. Excuse me if I cough again. And if you would like to join or visit, please call us at our office at 501-224-0021. So look for us the third Thursday, and next Tuesday, join us with Coffee with Carolyn and Gigi, our online support group. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to take a cough drop, get this cough out of my throat, and I will see you either Tuesday on Coffee with Carolyn and Gigi or next month with Let's Talk. Thank you for joining us.